Whoever controls the Indian Ocean will dominate Asia. The destiny of the world will be decided on its waters. Powerful words, not mine. They're often attributed to maritime strategist Alfred Mahan. He's said to have said this more than a century ago. The attribution is contested, but the content is not. And I'm not here to talk about who spoke these words. I'm here to tell you that this prophecy is about to come true. The war to control the Indian Ocean has begun. India is being challenged in its own backyard by the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army. They have a plan. Do we have a counter? Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and today we'll talk about China's designs to dominate the Indian Ocean. This is the region we're talking about. The Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean of the world. It covers nearly 20% of the water surface. Quick question. Why does China want to dominate this region? Because its economy depends on it. China needs the Indian Ocean to protect its economic interests. Consider these numbers. Around 80% of China's oil is imported through two sea routes, the Indian Ocean and the Malacca Strait. And as of today, neither is in Chinese control. What about trade? 95% of China's trade with three partners passes through the Indian Ocean. These partners are West Asia, Africa, and Europe. The numbers tell the story. China needs the Indian Ocean. So what do? Build ports and a naval presence. And I'm not talking about deploying a few ships here and there. I'm talking about military bases. China wants its own military bases in the Indian Ocean. It is said to be seriously deliberating this idea. Last year, the United States Department of Defense put out an assessment. It says Beijing has prepared a list of potential candidates, countries that China wants to target for bases. In the Bay of Bengal, there are three possible targets: Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. Then on the western side of India, China is considering these countries: Namibia, Seychelles, Tanzania, and the UAE. In fact, in the UAE, China was trying to build a military base secretly. The Americans caught them. We're talking about the Khalifa port. The Chinese were building a facility here, a multi-story building that could double up as a military base. This was at a terminal built and operated by the Chinese shipping giant COSCO. How were the Chinese doing it secretly? The UAE claims it had no idea. They did not know about China's military plan, at least that's what they say. But the Americans insist they have intel. So they put pressure, and work at this facility had to be stopped. But this is a one-off. This time the US had its way. It won't be the same every time and everywhere. China still has many other options, and nothing matches this one: Pakistan. If China wants a military base in the Indian Ocean, it will most probably be in Pakistan, because in Pakistan, China can dictate terms, claim the best of everything. There are obvious advantages. One, the PLA is familiar with the Karachi port. Their ships have been visiting Karachi for decades. The first port call happened way back in 1985. A Chinese destroyer and ship docked at the Karachi port more than 35 years ago. And since then, the Chinese Navy has regularly used this facility to replenish their supplies. In recent years, the navies of Pakistan and China have ramped up their drills in Karachi. In 2020, they had an exercise called Sea Guardians. For this drill, the PLA deployed 5 Chinese warships, 2 helicopters, and more than 60 special operations soldiers to Pakistan. And they plan to take it further. China and Pakistan have recently unveiled a plan to develop the Karachi coast. Long story short, the Chinese definitely have their eye on this city, Karachi. But Karachi is not their only option. The second one is Gwadar. And ever since this port was announced, there have been questions. What will it be used for? China says Gwadar is purely for trade. I do not know anyone who believes that. Also, trade from Gwadar does not make sense, because look at the location. Look at where China is building this port. This is where Gwadar is. This is one of the most backward regions of Pakistan. There is a severe water shortage here, and that makes any economic activity difficult. What about transporting oil? Very costly. China would end up spending more than $8 per barrel to transport oil from Gwadar. Now look at the distance. Moving cargo from Gwadar to China is a logistical nightmare. Containers must first traverse the entire length of Pakistan before crossing into China. That's 1,800 kilometers. So how does Gwadar make sense for trade? It doesn't. China would lose money here, and yet China is spending more than $1 billion to build this port. What explains this? Gwadar is not for Chinese trade, it is for the Chinese military. As simple as that. Gwadar can serve as a military base for the PLA, if not immediately, then certainly in the future. This port can easily be repurposed for the Chinese military. It can support Chinese amphibious assault ships, fleet replenishment ships, and depending on conditions, even aircraft carriers. And this is why China is keen on Gwadar. It has strategic potential. You base the Chinese Navy here and you can operate in and around the Persian Gulf. What will the Navy do? Help commercial vessels in case of a conflict and control the waters. Exert Chinese military pressure in the Indian Ocean region. This is the kind of potential that Gwadar holds for China. Now, to be fair, the PLA has not made use of the Gwadar port yet. But that doesn't mean they can't. One PLA officer was once asked about Gwadar. Here is what he said. The food is already on the plate. We'll eat it whenever we want to. Gwadar is a perfect example of China's dual-use strategy. Build a port on the pretext of commerce and then equip it for the People's Liberation Army. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, China is laying a network of such ports, dual-use ports. These ports can be leveraged for military needs whenever needed. In 2016, Beijing gave a legal foundation to this strategy. They introduced what is called the National Defense Transport Law. It has some very specific provisions for Chinese state-owned companies. By law, these companies are now required to design overseas infrastructure projects as per military standards. So that's what they're doing, building commercial ports for the military. I'll give you some examples. Ports built by China in the Indian Ocean region, Hambantota in Sri Lanka. It is now under Chinese control, you know that. China Merchants Port has a 99-year lease for Hambantota. It was built for trade, but Hambantota's existing berthing spaces can already accommodate surface combatants of the Chinese Navy. This includes corvette-class vessels. Same with Myanmar's Chauk Phu Port. Experts believe this facility is strategically significant for the PLA. It could be a valuable logistics support point. The Chinese Navy already conducts port calls in Myanmar. So this port, the Chauk Phu, could later on serve as a resupply stop. So we have Gwadar in Pakistan, we have Hambantota in Sri Lanka, and we have Chauk Phu in Myanmar. Let's zoom out on the map. What do you see now? This is the string of pearls, China's old project to choke India on the high seas. Beijing is executing this plan, but with a new playbook. The term military base is very controversial, and China knows that. It attracts attention, it triggers a lot of questions. So China has started building ports in the name of trade, basically dual-purpose facilities. Unfortunately for Beijing, the world is not blind. It sees these sinister designs, and it has begun protesting. Case in point, Gwadar again. For 1 month, thousands of people were on the streets of Gwadar. They know what's cooking inside the port. They know that Gwadar is being turned into a garrison. This was the biggest protest that Balochistan had ever witnessed. But China refused to even acknowledge these protests. Beijing called it fake news. The people of Gwadar exposed the ulterior motives of Beijing. China wants to weaponize the Belt and Road Initiative and dominate the Indian Ocean. It is time that India acknowledged this threat and built up its navy, because its rise as the next economic superpower depends on a free and open Indian Ocean.